Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode, Whiskey Cavalier. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. I do like that, obviously, this episode is kind of continuing, like, a bit of, like, everything that went down between Frankie and Will last episode. He kind of explains himself, like, why he kind of gave Frankie kind of the cold shoulder. For him, it's like, yeah, he doesn't feel safe with her, just because essentially he doesn't want to get hurt again, because obviously, like, the whole situation with Gigi, and he felt safe in that situation, and with Frankie, he just doesn't. Then, like, Susan brings it up of being like, you know, how many of your boyfriends have died? She's like 6 at most, you know? So that's kind of interesting. And even later on, Will even admits, yeah, it does sound a little weird. I want to talk about the whole, like, oh, Frankie doesn't make me feel safe. But I love her kind of prepping him up, you know, like, building him up, being like, yo, you're the king of emotional availability. He's like, yeah, that's me. I'm the king of that. I love that. But it is kind of interesting. Like, I think from a certain extent you can kind of understand, because obviously, like, Will being who he is, very open about his emotions and stuff like that. Frankie kind of being shut off about her emotions, which plays into this episode because they cross paths with a MI6 agent named Emma, played by Ophelia Lovibon. I never know how to properly pronounce her last name. I think I say Lovibon, but I think I do say Lovibon in some occasions too. Either way, I do apologize when I butcher it. But obviously, like, you know, she played Kitty in Elementary. There's also Hooten and the Lady. It was a short-lived show she was also on too, which I was like, I lost my mind when I saw her. It's like, that's pretty dope. And it's so interesting because she's kind of hitting on Will a little bit, and then Frankie's not liking it. She's being a little bit like, oh no, this and that. Like, especially Emma's like, oh, I want to go out for ice cream and stuff like that. And Will being like, oh, it sounds bitter with a British accent. And then Frankie just being like, ugh. I also love it when later on, when there's that lock picking situation, she's like, oh, like, Frankie's like, oh, you're still working at it? She's like, oh, things must work here different a little here in London, which is so interesting because, like, the actress who I always blank on it, like, Lauren Cohen's British, isn't she? Like, I think, or at least she's kind of bounced between both. I think she's like, what is she, like, half American, half British or something like that? I want to say something like that, because I think she does have an accent. Like I said, I keep forgetting what she does. Like, I think that is kind of like part of her natural accent, putting on a British accent. So, once again, it's just an interesting thing with the accents and stuff like that. But nevertheless, I like that dynamic of just, like, obviously there is something there. They know it. They even kind of tackle it a little bit this episode. But, just kind of like the back and forth about it all and stuff like that, because Frankie's like, oh, I don't trust her, and then he's like, no, I trust her completely. And I love the situation of Emma being like trying to mouth the words get on the roof, but Frankie's like, I don't know what you mean. She's like, just get on the roof, and driving away. And then Emma's actually a pretty good shot, ends up taking out some tires. He's like, whoa, Frankie, did you see that? She's a way better shot than you are. And just Frankie looking so annoyed about it. It's so interesting. I mean, to be fair, we already know that Frankie is very protective when it comes to Will anyway, just because of the way she treated Ray at the beginning because of the whole Gigi situation. I thought that was kind of pretty neat. But, you know, it's like, it's so sad, because for her, it's like, if we had any other job, we could totally knock back some drinks and see where the night takes us. But because we have this job, it's like, yeah, we are in this, you know, our jobs are too important to let, you know, our focus get compromised. Because even Frankie was like, yeah, I kind of let things in this episode kind of bother me a little bit when they shouldn't, but it's kind of like we need to stay focused on our job and stuff like that, so that means we can't be together. Even Will's like, I don't like it, but I understand. So the whole thing of them trying to just be colleagues and stuff. I also love that Desposito kept being something that kept being a thing in the episode connected to them, you know, whether it be the dude humming it and singing it early in the episode, or when they're in that club later on and it's playing. But it is kind of interesting how things end up playing out, because obviously, like, you know, obviously kind of dealing, you know, I think for her it's kind of like okay, like, you know, just kind of remove all the emotion, let's just get physical. But I think for her, like, that's kind of hard to do now, because she tries to do what that Liam dude is like, oh, maybe we could go for ice cream, you know. And he's like, oh yeah, you want to put it on me, or do I put it on you? Like, obviously he was coming at it from more of a, like, sexual standpoint, but obviously she meant it more as like almost like a hang out and have a date type of situation. But I guess for him it's just kind of like he never even thought about that with Frankie. So I guess for her it's just kind of like that's the situation she's kind of set up, and it's just like, oh, that, you know, And, for him just to only see it that way kind of bummed her out. She's just like, yeah, I'm not into it now. So it is kind of sweet that that's kind of like, because for her, it's such I think a foreign thing for her, especially because once again, this is coming from Will, walking hard on his sleeve, I think, for her, I think it's that nice combination because they are the most extreme. She is the most extreme, not opening up to people. He's the most extreme with his heart on his sleeve. So he's able to kind of melt her heart a little bit, or like kind of break down the walls that she's kind of put up. So it brings an interesting element to the pair, like their partnership. Sadly, she walked back and saw Emma and him making out, sadly. Which I wonder, are we going to see more of Emma? I mean, to be fair, I guess you could say, like, it balances the scale because, like, well, Will had to see her making out with that dude last episode. So now it's like, oh, she walks in on that. But obviously, it's just going to, there's going to be some harboring feelings there of, like, yeah, we both feel it, we know it's there, but we can never be together because it would compromise things. I mean, who knows, maybe it'd make things better. But, they're, like I said, they justified it by being like, our line of work, it just wouldn't work out, which is kind of sad, but still. I'm interested to see what kind of developments, like obviously her seeing him and Emma kissing. Like obviously she's a spy too, but to be fair, they're all kind of in the spy business, so it's not that, well, I mean, that's the thing, like spies' allegiances and alliances can change day to day, so it's like Emma's a friend today, could easily be an enemy tomorrow in certain regards. I mean, maybe that's just me stereotyping just because of the whole spy situation, but nevertheless, it would be pretty dope if we got to see her more, just because I'd be like, it'd be cool to see Olivia Lovibon, going with that one this time. It'd be cool to see if she become like a recurring character in this or not, but, we'll see. What I also loved in this episode is obviously like Standish's whole situation at the beginning, because obviously there's a whole conversation like before. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be back. I want to be in the field and stuff like that. But after having a near-death experience, he didn't bounce back from it really quickly. He almost fell to his death, and it's just like, oh, luckily there was a trash can here because a whole bunch of trash in it because I ended up surviving. And so he was super reluctant getting out of field. And I love Will being kind of playing the role of team leader, being like, which he is one of two team leaders, co-leader, doing the whole situation of like, oh no, when you want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. He's like, if I want to. He's like, no, when? Because Will knew it was going to come up sooner or later. And I love him trying to have time to himself, and Will just pops up. He's like, oh, how did you do that? He's like, I'm magic. It's magic. And plus I'm a spy. And it's like, oh. And, Will's like, yeah, we're all get scared, because for Stan, she felt bad about it because, like, everyone in that team is like, oh, when they got hurt or, suffered some physical trauma, they kind of went back to work immediately. And he's the only one that's kind of like, kind of suffering. So he kind of feels a little inadequate. But, Will tells him, it's like, we all are afraid. He's like, when I'm afraid, I clench my jaw and stick my chin out because at least I know, like, I still look handsome or something. Even Standish, I'm like, oh, looks good, man. But I even love it being like, oh yeah, like they better like give me a sword and knight me and then let me keep the sword, Sir Standish. He's like, yeah, that's pretty dope. And he has to face like his fears because he's on top of like that tower and has to get towards the box to disable like the security system and stuff like that. Which I can kind of understand too. I mean, once again, having that near-death experience, I mean, in his case, but also I can understand because once again, I talk about it frequently when it comes up. I have a fear of heights, so I can understand. Once again, it's always a thing too of like, not necessarily a fear of heights, more like a fear of falling, but still. But he was able to kind of conquer his fear because it was something that Will was saying, like when the time comes, a situation is going to call for it where you kind of push your fear aside and do the job that's needed. So I think we're definitely going to see a lot more Standish, out in the field. So I thought it was kind of a nice episode for progressing his character like that. Kind of put him in that situation where, it isn't him just jumping in there being all crazy and reckless. In the field type of situation, it was more so like oh man, he got scared. And I think, that's the life of, a spy and stuff like that. It's dangerous work. Your life, things could just go wrong and your life could seriously be in danger. So I just thought that was kind of a nice progression for his character. But another interesting side of things is the whole Jay, Ray, and Susan thing. I loved it, where it's like every chance he got, Ray would tear Jay down a little bit by being like, oh, you want to act like you're so smart, but you're actually not the smartest person on the team. Actually looking at the files and the grades and stuff like that, it's actually Susan. He's like, wait, what? And just every time you turn around, it's like, oh, it's like, oh, I can't read this. It's like, oh, Susan's like, oh, I can because it's in Portuguese. I can read Portuguese. He's like, and then Jay's like, oh, I can too. I actually know 7 languages. And then you immediately have Susan being like, oh, I know 9. It's like, oh, 9 is more than 7. Standish is like, I think you're right on that. It's like, maybe I should go tell everyone. Standish is like, you should definitely go tell everyone. Jay's like, no, you don't have to go tell everyone. And I just love that constantly being a thing throughout the episode. But it's just because they're all like trying to bust his balls and kind of take him down a level. And then it turns out, oh, hey, they're all inside on a joke. And I love even like Ray being like, oh, you're no fun, Susan. She's like, no, I am totally fun. You take that back. But when it's all said and done, like, it's also kind of sweet to Ray's reason, because for him it's like, it's something him and Will used to do a lot. And for him it's like, when he screwed up things between him and Will, he didn't just lose his best friend, he lost his only friend. So for him, this team actually means a lot more too, because it's the fact is that this team is kind of like the closest thing he has to friends. So that's why he's trying so hard to kind of buddy up with him, which is like the whole prank thing, which we also learned that he goes commando. I love Will being like, gross, and in Frankie's face literally being like, ill, gross. But we do see that like, there is camaraderie being built, because Susan and Jay end up pranking him later on. He's like, oh, that's so good, you guys got me. It's like, friends, we're good, we're a team, and it's like, yeah, it's like, yay. So Ray is slowly but surely kind of working his way through the team. I think him and Standish are okay. Frankie and him got still some work to do, but him and Will definitely in that regard, but he's slowly working his way into the team, so that's pretty nice. So I thought that was a nice element to it. But there's also a very interesting thing, and I think this element's going to be like the main overarching plot, because obviously it's so far been kind of almost episodical in certain regards of like, oh yeah, here we are, next mission. Well, it seems like obviously the bad guy in this episode was Cabot, but it turned out like he was a part of, like, he was being forced to by some group known as the Trust, because the entire episode was basically about blackmailing some royalty and to basically help destabilize the monarchy. So it's some group named the Trust, which are connected to different organizations. It's an organization that's got people kind of all over, in different governments and stuff like that. It's kind of like a cabal type of situation, and it seems like they kind of change and kind of warp the world the way they want to. Which is interesting when you think about it in different regards, because I use the term cabal, because there's also kind of a cabal in Elementary, and tying it back into Olivia Lovibond being part of Elementary, which, like I said, there's a cabal and everything. But it's kind of interesting. I like that, because it's like immediately getting introduced to what I'm believing is going to be the main antagonist of the show. Obviously, it's like a spy group versus a organization that I guess disrupt countries and stuff like that. There was a sniper in this episode. We never got to see them. We saw a little bit of their clothes, but that's about it. I'm assuming it's going to end up being someone that's connected to Frankie, maybe. I mean, because obviously Frankie has like the most illustrious past that we're still learning about. Because like obviously, like it's like, oh wow, you've broke into houses and stuff like before. It's like, yeah, I have a very interesting past. So, we learn more and more about her as time goes on. So she seems like she might be the biggest enigma amongst all the group. At least that's how I feel so far. So we'll see if that continues being the case or not. Some very interesting things, and I'm curious to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.